back, baby.
Offense, you know what to do.
It's football time in Tennessee.
Get me Tennessee.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 1796 Sports Podcast. I'm your host, NormalVolFan, joined alongside Ryan, as always, and joined with a special guest that we have all the time. Pretty much, it kind of feels like that. Billy Derrick. Billy, you want to introduce yourself just so, new listeners know who you are?
Yeah, I'm Billy Derrick, as you just said, with VandySports.com, Vanderbilt's rivals site, and also I'm with the George Plaster Show weekdays, Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time. We talk a lot of Vandy, Tennessee. We've talked a lot about the matchup coming up this week, and obviously a lot of pro stuff. But I mean, right now is when you really start talking a lot of baseball. At least if your team is good and you're in the SEC, and luckily for Vanderbilt and Tennessee fans, they both are. And man, it's always fun when these two get together. I know we're going to get into it, but yeah, always a blast, boys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Billy,
Yep.
nice to have you back, Billy. Start things off here. I just want to ask you, on the heels of Vanderbilt, having a poor weekend against Georgia, like what's the mood around the Vandy boys right now?
It's not good. I mean, there's really no sugarcoating it. I think after that weekend, now things can change. They could sweep these next couple weekends, and my perception of the program could change. Number one, I don't see that happening. Now they could win one of these last two series, regular season series. They got Kentucky next weekend, and then get into a regional, maybe do some damage, and we change our tune. But that it just didn't look like normal Vanderbilt, and that's happened too much the last few years, where they'll go on the road and they're non-competitive. I mean, he got run ruled twice in those first couple games against Georgia, and game 3 they were able to get a few more across, but it's just unrecognizable from the type of alpha swagger Vanderbilt teams that knew they were gonna beat the opponent more times than not. And it's slipped. I mean, look, ever since 2021 when they lost in that final series to Mississippi State, offensively they've just lagged behind and really lagged behind the rest of the SEC. They haven't gotten those thumpers and those big bats that LSU had last year and Tennessee and A&M have this year. A lot of games they just can't compete, especially on the road, offensively. Now, when they go home and play, that's when things have changed, and that's when morale has been up. They beat Florida at home, and they actually went on the road and beat LSU. So it hasn't been all bad this year. It's kind of been a roller coaster ride. I mean, I still can't really figure out this team. I mean, they could come this weekend and take 2 or 3 from Tennessee, and we would be. I'd be talking a lot differently about this team, but they just haven't been consistent enough for me to think that. So yeah, it's really low. And like I said, after this past weekend, I think this is as low as Vanderbilt baseball has been in a long time. And they're 11-13 and at risk of missing the tournament for the first time in 17 years. They have a 17 straight regional streak that is at risk of being broken. So, I mean, it's do or die, and they're going to be playing for their lives, their tournament lives these last couple weeks.
Yeah. Now, a follow-up to that, Billy, what do you think the number is that Vanderbilt has to get to as far as SEC wins to even be considered?
That's a good question. I've heard 12. I've heard 13. I've heard 14. Usually it's 14. If you're able to get to 14 wins, you're pretty much guaranteed a regional spot. If you're at 13, traditionally you need to do some work in Hoover. That's usually what to say. If you're at 13, you got to get string a few wins off in Hoover. Vanderbilt's gotten in the tournament with 12 wins before. And obviously they had I would assume their RPI was what set them over the edge there that year. I forget what year it was, but they have gotten into the tournament with 12 wins. They actually got in the tournament one year with 13 wins. So I think I said earlier they need to win. They need to get to 13. If you win 2 more games, and that's just salvaging a couple of games here in the next couple series, and then you win a few in Hoover, I think this team will be fine. So I say 13 right now, but at the end of the day, we don't know. It could be 12 with how dominant the SEC is this year. But you'd like to get to, that threshold is always usually 14. You'd like to be at 14 at least to secure that spot, because 16 is the number for regional host. And I don't think anybody really thinks they're going to get there. But right now, I'd say 13 for this team right now.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't have asked for two tougher opponents to finish out the SEC schedule. So, and that's saying a lot, because I honestly, and I'm sure both of you agree, we did not think Kentucky was going to be what they are this year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, what Mingione has done has been really impressive, and Kentucky's kind of Vanderbilt on steroids, and like Kentucky's, they play the way Vanderbilt wants to play. They just have a lot of older guys. Their pitching is really good. I mean, y'all saw it there in Lexington, and I'd like to get more of y'all's take on what you saw from that series, because Vanderbilt will be up there next weekend. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody expected that, and Kentucky's kind of put a wrench in some teams' plans in the East, like Tennessee and Florida and South Carolina. Kentucky, I mean, ever since, especially y'all started paying attention to college baseball, even I started paying attention to college baseball, Kentucky's really been a non-factor. So yeah, I mean, that came out of left field.
Yeah, for the Vandy boys up in, is it in Nashville or Lexington?
It's up in Lexington, actually. Yeah.
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 Watch out for bunting, steals, good pitching, and Ryan Waldschmidt. He mashes.
Yeah, I've heard
they got a lot of guys that mash.
Yeah.
That's a really good offense.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they kind of, whenever their offense, when they're in closer games, they kind of play that small ball style that Tim Corbin loves. And I was going to ask you, do you think the college of baseball today, where home runs are everything, do you think the game is passing Tim Corbin by just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, obviously that's what it looks like. I mean, the last few years, stylistically, they've been behind. I mean, I say behind, they've just been different. I mean, they've been lagging behind though at the same time. I mean, they haven't been to a regional, since that 2021 season. When they made it to the final series, so they had a drop off after Rocker and Leiter left. Naturally you're going to have a drop off, but you could tell how much they relied on those two guys. They were a pitching and defense team with Rocker and Leiter, and they carried them all the way. That's how good they were. They carried them all the way to the final series. But the bat. I mean, if they had marginally better bats, I think they go back to back, or not back. It wouldn't have been back to back, but technically with the COVID year there between 2019 and 2021. But
yeah,
you saw it. I mean, their bats just they couldn't produce. I mean, those last two games of that series, and so ever since then, had the 2022 year where obviously that was a season Tennessee was number one and dominated basically that whole season. And you guys saw it. Vanderbilt scored what, I think 6 runs that weekend that when Tennessee came to town and in total. So you're just not going to beat many elite teams like that nowadays, which is why I know we're going to get into it, but which is why I think it's going to be tough for Vanderbilt this weekend, because Tennessee at any given moment can reel off 7, 8, 9 runs in an inning. And Vanderbilt in 2019 used to be able to do that with that lineup, and occasionally in 2021. But like I said, ever since 2021, they haven't had that explosive potential. And I'm not ready to say the game has passed Tim Corbin. I know a lot of people have argued that and debated that, and I mean, I think it's reasonable to say that. I'm not calling people stupid that do, but I'm just like, we have to wait and see, like, what if they go these next couple weekends and find ways to get some wins, get into a regional, and maybe they get, ball starts bouncing their way, because they have had some bad luck. They've had some bad injuries. So, I mean, it certainly looks that way, but I wouldn't necessarily go that far yet, just because I do think, he'll find a way to still be successful, knowing him and knowing his mindset. I mean, he is 62 years old, so he's getting up there, but, a lot of the coaches that start to think about retirement, or at least close to their 70s, I think he's still got energy. I think he still gets fueled. Now, there's been some points this year where I have seriously thought how much longer? It's kind of put the question in your head of how much longer does he want to do this? Will he adapt more? Will he change? Will he make changes with the coaching staff? It's kind of like the Rick Barnes type thing. I've heard some Rick Barnes rumors floated around that this could be his last year. I'm not saying it will be, but naturally coaches get older, and how much more can they take? So I think it's a good question, but I'm not ready to say it's passed him by, but I mean, we're getting there. I mean, if this weekend is ugly, I think there's some real looking in the mirror and soul searching this staff, and Tim Corbin especially is going to have to do, because it hasn't really been working. I mean, especially this season.
Yeah, for sure. Now, getting into this weekend, I agree with Jim. I think Vanderbilt's going to, I mean, they have to have something for Tennessee if they want a chance at making a regional. So I expect Vanderbilt to come out with their hair on fire and just give everything they have. Jim, do you want to speak more to that?
I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I just think, as a kid that used to play baseball, when your back's against the wall, that's usually when you play your hardest and best. And Tennessee really, our bats have been almost non-existent. I mean, I understand the Florida thing and how we scored 11 runs in one inning, but it's not the same as the beginning of the year right now. I'm not saying it won't happen in Nashville, because I'm assuming Tennessee is hyped for this series as well. Because I mean, we've dominated the series the past 2 years, and I just think Vandy is going to be a lot tougher to beat, even though it's a semi-road or home game for us. I think with their backs against the wall, it's going to be a tough get for Tennessee to at least win the series.
Yeah, and I think that's another factor to look at, is that I think it's 7 games in a row now that Tennessee has beaten Vanderbilt. Billy, I know that has to rub the team, the Vanderbilt fan base, entirely the wrong way.
Yeah, it makes them sick to their stomach. I mean, because baseball is what Vanderbilt has relied on and been able to expect a winning product for the last 22 years, however long Tim Corbin's been there. And so to see the team, the in-state team out east, as Vanderbilt people say, start to take control of the state and their position in the Eastern Division, I mean, it sucks. It's hard. So that's kind of layered underneath the rivalry. I mean, there's so many. I love it. I know there's a lot of Vandy people that can't stand Tony Vitello, that can't stand Tennessee's program and what he's built, and kind of how they carry themselves, and how they have, basically grabbed hold of a lot of general baseball fans in the state. I mean, there's some fans that have latched on to Tennessee. I'm not that way. I mean, look, I'll admit I wasn't the biggest fan early on of the way they operated, but, I've grown to, and a lot of people like that, but I think they learned after that Notre Dame loss in the Super Regional. Ever since that loss, Tennessee hasn't had now they haven't been as dominant, but they've been really good, but I think Vitello and staff learned that, okay, we got to play with some composure. We've got to sort of instill a little bit more composure in our guys. And I respected that. I think it was a learning moment. I don't hate Tony Vitello. I don't hate any of the players. I actually respect what he's done. I think he's done it in the way that, if you were to build up the prototype team and program to overtake, and I'm not saying they're going to, put Vanderbilt 6 feet under, and who knows what happens with Vanderbilt baseball, in the next 4 or 5 years. But if you were to build a prototype team to overtake Vanderbilt baseball in the state of Tennessee, that's how you do it. I mean, this is how, I would have told somebody to do it, and Vitello has done that. So yeah, it's been awful, for Vanderbilt people. But you look at it, and there's still pride in this program. Tim Corbin is still a head coach. There's still those 2 national titles up there in left field. I think fans can look at that, and they'll always be able to be proud of that. And I think that is kind of what they're clinging to. And then, for this weekend, you guys talked about how, nervous, y'all are and how you kind of hesitant just because of how desperate Vanderbilt is. And I totally get that. But at the same time, Tennessee is better statistically in just about every offensive and pitching category than Vanderbilt. Their batting average is better. Tennessee is at the top of the SEC in slugging. Vanderbilt's at the bottom half. On base percentage, Tennessee's at the top. Vandy's bottom half. So every offensive category, pretty much, Tennessee's hit 126 home runs. Vandy's at 55. I mean, that's pretty stark. I do think the base pads could play a factor this weekend. Vanderbilt really likes to steal the base when they get on. Tennessee really doesn't. So I think if Vanderbilt can get on base and make Cal Stark's really good. I think they need to make him make some plays. I think that's an avenue for Vanderbilt. But to the pitching, and a lot of people may not realize this. Vanderbilt, they're going to pitch well. They'll be dominant on the mound every year. They're kind of middle of the pack in the SEC this year. They're 8th in ERA. Tennessee is 2nd in ERA this year. I mean, who would have thought that? And so it's not as stark. Tennessee and Vanderbilt, I would say, are pretty competitive and similar pitching wise, but offensively, Tennessee is so much better, so much more dynamic and explosive, and they could be down, like last year. Look at last year, that game 1. Vandy's up all game 3-1. You get to the 9th, and I think it was back-to-back homers from Tiers and Dreiling, and you just go, I mean, that was a dagger, and then Griffin Merritt hits the walk-off. So Tennessee can do that. They can explode like that. Vanderbilt hasn't really shown they can. So it's going to be interesting. And guys, I think this weekend, like if Vanderbilt gets swept and just walked off their field by Tennessee again, that's probably going to sting more than the last couple years, just because of that would be 10 straight. And it would really send warning signs, I think, not only to the fans, of course, and people that cover college baseball, but also the Tim Corbin and his staff. So they need it, guys. They'll be desperate. Again, I don't see it, but we'll see. It's baseball, and, you never know what can happen.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Billy, who – because I've – all I've looked at is Vanderbilt just in the background during these SEC weekends. Who is the best hitter and who is the best pitcher for the Commodores?
The best hitter for Vanderbilt right now, I would say, is Jonathan Vastine. Before tonight's game, he was hitting .313, 7 home runs, 33 RBIs. He had a home run just now against Louisville, so he's up to 8 now. RJ Austin is another guy. Jaden Davis, I would have said Jaden Davis, but he's hurt. He got hit by a 94-mile-an-hour fastball against Florida a few weeks ago. So he's out. I'd say Jonathan Vastine's their best hitter right now. And then pitching-wise, he's a great shortstop too. Pitching-wise, I got to go Carter Holton. Bryce Cunningham is better statistically, but Carter Holton, I think, is more consistent. He's got more swing and miss. He hasn't given up as many home runs as Cunningham has. And that's also the concern with this team and this weekend. Vanderbilt's given up 60 home runs this year, which isn't crazy, but their 2 starters, Cunningham and Holton, have given up 20 combined. So, you'd like to see that number get down. But I'd say Carter Holton's their best pitcher. He'll probably pitch Saturday this weekend. And then Jonathan Vastine, their shortstop, I'd say, is their best hitter.
I was just thinking while you were saying all that, Billy. Last time Tennessee played Vanderbilt in Nashville, we had the whole bat situation. Now, and there are even rumors at the start of last year that Tim Corbin was the one that got Maui Ahuna suspended because he told on on Tennessee. Now, I think Vitello respects Tim Corbin a lot as a coach, but I also think he's not very fond of, at least, unproven rumors about how he's coming at the program with just the way we do things. I know the bat was, that's a rule. You can't really do much about that, but the tattletaling. Have you heard anything about that? Because I've been wanting to ask you that. And now that we're finally here to baseball season, this is my chance. Have you heard anything about the rumor that Tim Corbin was the one who blew the top off the Maui Ahuna situation last year?
It's funny. I hadn't heard anything about. I didn't hear anything about it until the week of last season's series. I was talking to, I think, Ben McKee from Vols 247, and he had brought that up, and I had no clue. I mean, I had no idea. I think I remembered hearing Twitter rumors about it, but you can't ever believe those. But Ben McKee brought it up, and as a reputable source, I mean, he covers the program. I kind of started to look into it a little bit more, and the funny part about it was all the Vanderbilt people I talked to said, "Oh no, that's just a rumor." But I ended up talking with a couple other Tennessee people, and they said, "Yeah, he's what tipped off the NCAA." So I don't know. I mean, look, maybe it did. I wouldn't be stunned if he was the guy, because let's say Corbin was going after him too, which I don't know if he was, but I mean, if he was recruiting Maui Ahuna as well, and he hears, whether it's from Maui or somebody else, that I don't even know what happened at Vitello. I guess he flew out there. And that's a violation. And, I'm sure Vitello knew it was, but I guess somebody might have, and if this happened, I don't know if it happened, I guess somebody might have leaked it to Corbin. And, but again, that would have, I don't know why Corbin would have done that unless, especially if he wasn't in play with Ahuna recruiting wise. So, again, I wouldn't be stunned if that was the case. Corbin, he's on the NCAA rules committee. He doesn't miss a beat there. I'm not saying Vitello didn't know that was a rule, but Corbin he's been known to be, a kind of a stickler for those things. I mean, you saw the sticker, the wrong sticker on the bat, I think it was. And there's been a lot, like Vanderbilt people want to say Tennessee has been shaving their bats and whatever. And that's baseball. I mean, look, you're always going to try to find some sort of advantage. And so at the end of the day, I don't, Tennessee ended up sweeping Vanderbilt that series. So again, it didn't ultimately matter. I thought it was hilarious though. I mean, I don't know how many Tennessee people were laughing at it at the moment, but I think it's pretty funny to laugh back at it. It just perfectly defines the rivalry. Like, it's just fun. Like,
looking back at it now, I mean, it's hilarious because it had that birthed the whole Mike Honcho thing with Jordan Beck. But to say all this stuff about Tim Corbin and the rules and the stickler, and he's a stickler for that stuff, and then Vanderbilt to have that whole drama with the foreign substance a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard that was a mixture of sunscreen and rosin that just happened to become a foreign substance. I don't know. But I wanted to hear your take on that whole situation as well.
Yeah, so I've got somebody I know within the program. I asked him about it a couple days later, and I go, "What was going on? Was that just BS?" And he was like, "Yeah, dude, it was total BS. He mixed sunscreen and rosin, like, because it was a hotter day, and he's been doing that most of the season, and he hasn't been caught. It was just the built up, the discolored nature of it. Right, it got dark on his arm, and he was going to it too. He was, because I was there, I was at that game, and I didn't notice it initially, but he was going to his arm in between pitches, and about midway through the game, Florida's dugout started laughing at it and pointing it out, and kind of say, "Well, he kept pointing it out every time." And of course, O'Sullivan, he wasn't going to shy away from that because they were down. They didn't want to get swept. And JD, he was dealing. I mean, he was carving Florida's lineup. And, I guess, like I said, because it got dark, O'Sullivan saw that, requested the umpire to go check at it. I mean, they all four umpires sat there with JD Thompson for like 15, 20 minutes, it felt like. I mean, forever, just trying to figure out what the hell it was. And so they ended up ejecting him, and he's out. He was out for 4 games, the next 4 games. And so I thought, knowing Tim Corbin, if this was something serious and this was seriously a sticky tack substance or some, pine tar, whatever, then yeah. I mean, I would have I would have expected Tim Corbin to maybe bench him the rest of the year or even kick him off because he's done that to players before, with disciplinary stuff. But knowing that Corbin, I mean, when he was ready to pitch again, he pitched him. So I thought, and Scott Brown, their pitching coach, was actually giving the umpire an earful after that too. I think it was kind of a BS type thing. It was just because he was going to his arm, and it was visible. It was darkened, and you could see it. So that's what got him. And yeah, and again, maybe he made a mistake in letting it get too dark, because I think that's something. I mean, that's big league guys do that, sunscreen and rosin, and yeah, I mean, it does create an advantage. But what player, what pitcher isn't trying to find an advantage? So
yeah,
it was funny though. I mean, people had a right to throw stones at that, especially after what happened with Corbin and Jordan Beck and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if he didn't do it on purpose, then he realized, I now have a foreign substance. Mm-hmm. Why not go to it? I mean, that's just baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about if you can avoid getting caught, why not? I mean,
yeah,
that's baseball.
Jim, do you have any questions for Billy about the Commodores?
Not any specific, because I haven't really been watching Vanderbilt, but as a fan, I know you report for them and stuff, but as a fan, what are you feeling this weekend? What, like, record wise, do you think you guys could sneak two? Are you feeling one, or do you feel a sweep coming along?
I'm not confident. I think if anything, they can get one in. Like, if I were to bet, I don't think you can bet on like who wins the series. I would bet Tennessee takes 2 out of 3. Because look, last weekend's a good example. Tennessee goes to Florida. A lot of the talk was Florida's desperate. They got to have this. It's going to be a tough trip for Tennessee. Sometimes the weather, it can be muggy down there and uncomfortable. But Tennessee ends up exploding in Game 3 and just imposing their will. And that was a good indicator to me that this team is legit, and they're not going to shy away. They're going to prove that they're just as desperate as the other team. Now, I was talking to a buddy a couple of days ago about this series, and he told me, and he's a Tennessee guy, he said, I don't know, man. I can see this series going a lot of different ways. I can see Tennessee coming in and sweeping Vanderbilt. I can see Vanderbilt taking 2 out of 3, and because they're desperate, they're at home. They played a lot better at home this year. So I can support both sides of it, but deep down, I haven't seen anything that makes me think Vanderbilt can win the series up to this point of the season. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt finds a way to win the series, because they are desperate. They got to have it. This is a playoff game for them. I mean, this is sort of survive in advance, and it's like the tournament starting early. So yeah, I mean, and look, you're motivated. You're playing the team that swept you the last couple of years. They've won 7 straight. Vanderbilt's got some Tennessee kids on the team. Obviously, Tennessee does too. And so I think, being able to say, that this is our state or whatever, it's a rivalry series. So both teams will be fired up. So yeah, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt finds a way to squeeze out a couple wins here at home and get the series win. But I'm not picking that to happen. I just, like I said, I haven't seen enough this year, and I'm not confident enough in the product I've seen this year from this team to say Vanderbilt will win this series. Like, I wouldn't predict it. But again, it's one of those this could be that's baseball weekend, and Vanderbilt gets hot, and they start to turn their season around. Kind of like LSU did last year with Texas A&M, or not last year, last weekend. They beat them at home, who was the number 1 team. For Tennessee, that they'll be motivated, but I can see Tennessee coming in here making some mistakes, and so I know I've been kind of everywhere here, but at the end of the day, and I know I said it at the beginning, the way this team has been playing, I don't see them winning this series.
See, and I'm on the same boat with Tennessee. I think Tennessee could easily win 2 games here, but if Tennessee's offense comes and plays the way we all know they can, I could see this as a sweep. I mean, our pitching has been, above average, and when the offense is going, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of teams that can keep up with Tennessee in the first place. But I'm in the boat kind of like you, where I'm going to say Tennessee takes a series and wins two, but I feel like, I could feel a slip up either on a Friday or the Sunday, because I think Drew Beam, he's been there before. He knows what to, expect. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm in the same boat as you, but on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like you said. I think that's a good point. I haven't heard that yet about the Drew Beam thing. Like, I'd be stunned if Tennessee loses Drew Beam's start on Saturday. But and they've been going with Stamos and then Kazi on Fridays. And that's worked pretty well these last 2-3 weeks. But I know early on in the season they had some struggles, especially on the road. Especially Kazi. It looks like he's settled in though. And then Sunday, it's been Seacrest, right, as an opener.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's Seacrest. So, yeah, I mean, look, Vanderbilt. I think if they win this series, they'll win Friday and Sunday. That's probably what I would say. And if they lose it, who knows? I mean, like I said, they could get swept. I just think, like, I'm with you. If Tennessee comes in here and plays the way they're capable of playing and is on their A game, Vanderbilt has no shot. I mean, Vanderbilt's going to have Tennessee making mistakes, make pitching mistakes. Vanderbilt's going to need a day where maybe the wind's blowing out, they catch a few homers, but even on the other side of it, Tennessee could be hitting some homers too. So, and number one, ultimately, if Vanderbilt's going to win the series, they have to pitch well. I think there's something like 12-3 when they get a quality start from either Cunningham or Holton. And its quality start, of course, is 6 innings, and giving up 3 or fewer runs. And they've done that a lot. They've been able to do that. Just not really on the road, but when they've done that at home, they've been able to win, 3-1, 4-0, 5-2, ways like that. So that's something to watch. If Vanderbilt has good starting pitching and they go 6, 7, 8 innings, I could see them winning a couple games here, but that's hard to do against this Tennessee lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Billy, it's kind of depressing because, we had you on for football, we had you on for basketball, and you didn't get a chance to talk about a good Vanderbilt team. I thought when we came around to baseball, you would, but now you seem just as negative about the baseball team. So,
yeah, I mean,
I want to give you – sorry, Billy. I want to give you a chance to make the case right now for a Vanderbilt sweep. What would have to happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm definitely more positive than either of the two sports. I mean, basketball and football have been just awful these last, 3, 4, 5 years. But yeah, I mean, I can see it. Like I was thinking the other day, I was like, what if Vanderbilt sweeps this weekend? And, they get hot and they turn their season around and they, they find a way to get into a regional and win that. And, just because you've seen that, you saw that with Tennessee last year. It took one series against Vanderbilt for them to get hot. I know this is later in the year, but I said it earlier. I think Bryce Cunningham on Friday is going to have to go at least 6 innings, surrendering less than 3 runs or less, go deep into the game. Vanderbilt's going to have to hit a couple home runs, put some runs on the board, take Friday. I think you have to win Friday night if you're Vanderbilt. That's kind of how I'm at, because if you get a good start from Drew Beam on Saturday, Tennessee has the momentum and they can, I mean, that's when they would win the series. But yeah, I think number one, Bryce Cunningham and Carter Holton, their two best starters, their horses, have to have quality starts. And because if not, they don't have a shot. But I can see them doing that. They pitched well at home. So they've got to have quality starts. And they need to have some big innings. I mean, they need to have some innings where they score 3, 4, 5 runs and just string them together and take the momentum of the game, take control of the game, and get their fans involved and just prove that you can hold up with Tennessee, that you can beat this team. And like I said, if they can win Friday, I think they've got the momentum. And they got to get into Tennessee's bullpen. I know Tennessee's pitching has actually been pretty good. I know on the surface you guys might say I'm just kind of an average group, but I mean Kirby Connell's been phenomenal out of the pen, and they've got some other guys, Aaron Combs as well, Nate Snead, who was I mean, he won that series against Florida, I thought. I know they scored 16 runs, but who knows what they get without that Snead outing there late in the game. But, yeah, they got to get to their pen. But at the same time, Tennessee has basically been doing bullpen games, Friday and Sunday. So I say get to their pen. Their pen's been pretty good. So, yeah, I just think that Tennessee's going to have to make some mistakes. Billy Amick's going to have to boot some balls at third, which, has happened occasionally. And Christian Moore, he hasn't, he's been fine at second, but, obviously has made some errors as well. So making Tennessee's infield make plays and making Tennessee think, making them doubt themselves. I think that's going to be big. Vandy's got to get on base. They got to bunt. They got to steal. They got to be active. And so, yeah, that's my perfect scenario. Cunningham and Carter in games 1 and 2 have to have quality starts. They've got to go deep into the game. And offensively, Vandy's just got to do enough. They got to do enough. I don't think if Cunningham and Holton give you quality starts, I think Vanderbilt needs, 5, 6, 7 runs. I mean, I don't think they need a crazy amount. I say that Tennessee could just come out here and outscore Vanderbilt 40-5 this weekend. But yeah, look, I'm not sitting here saying Vanderbilt's going to lie down and just get dog walked again. Like they did last Saturday, 17-1, I think it was, against Tennessee. But Tennessee's good. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the country. That's possible. So it's going to be tough, guys. I wouldn't bet on it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt comes out here, plays desperate, and because they have been good at home. They've been good at home, but they also haven't played a team like Tennessee at home. So, yeah, there's my case for Vanderbilt sweeping potentially.
That's a pretty good case. I mean, I could definitely see all those things happening, especially if Vanderbilt gets action on the base paths. But you and Jim both were talking about, Tennessee's pitching and how to a Tennessee fan, it's not as good as it has been in the previous 2 years. But if you just sit back and look, they're 5th in the country in team ERA, and that's without A.J. Russell, who's been out since for almost 2 months now. I mean, it's incredible what Vitello and Frank Anderson do, and seemingly always getting the pitching staff, serviceable by mid-April, and they're rearing up and ready to go by June. And last year, without Tennessee's pitching, they don't even sniff the College World Series. And I've said this to Jim a few episodes ago. Without Chase Burns, they don't either. That's why I don't hate Chase Burns. But Jim, did you have any other questions for Billy before we hop off here?
Like I said, at the beginning, this series could go either way. I mean, both sides obviously don't know how it's going to go. I'm kind of living in the past, though, of how Vanderbilt usually is. So getting, Billy's side saying how, the way they've been, this year gives me a little bit more confidence. It's just, I'm watching this Tennessee Queen series right now, or game right now, and Tennessee looks dead in the water. They can't get any offense going, and it's just you can't have that against a team like Vanderbilt. They're just way better than a team like Queens, and it's going to be, like I said, very interesting. It's going to be. I'm looking forward to it. Kind of not.
Yeah, Billy, you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I won't be able to be there, but I'll be keeping up. I'll be watching it. Should be a great atmosphere. There, there'll be some orange. But Vanderbilt will show up. They'll be ready to play. And I'm looking forward to seeing these two teams back at it. I love watching this rivalry. Something's going to happen. Something, whether it's a rules violation or whatever, something dramatic's going to happen, and usually happens on a Friday night. So yep. I'm fired up for it. I'm excited. This could change Vanderbilt's season, or for Tennessee, this could sort of put the stamp on them being the team in the state. I mean, if you think about it. So yeah, it's going to be fun. A lot riding on this weekend, more so for Vanderbilt, but Tennessee, they won't lack for motivation either. So I'm looking forward to it, boys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Nice bow to put on this episode, Billy. Go Vols.
Go Vols, baby.